Raise your hand if this has been you. You wake up in the morning and you have a piercing migraine. You go to the bathroom, you find yourself queasy, throwing up, and you conjure the energy that you have left in your body to get a sub for the day. But then you realize, now I have to make sub plans. Has this been you? If not, maybe you've had a really lovely weekend. It's been super busy. You were out with friends, you were with family, you had a lot of things going on. You show up on Monday and you have nothing planned for the day. Has that been you? I gotta be honest, both of those have been me at some point or another in my teaching career. In this video, I'm gonna be sharing a one-day lesson plan that you can use during those sticky situations. Hello everyone, my name is Bridget Spackman. I'm a multi-age teacher in Central Pennsylvania. I teach 4th, 5th, and 6th grade learners across all content areas. I have a passion for ELA, authentic instruction, and rigorous teaching. Having lesson plans that are sporadic, one-day lessons are great to have for those sticky situations, such as you're not feeling totally prepared for the day, or you need to have a sub and you need lesson plans stat. These are great because it's a one-day lesson. You don't have to make sure that you're following up with anything. They're great for review skills throughout the year. And it's also great because it's less work on you when you really need it most. The trick to this is that you want to have these planned well in advance. This means that you're going to have to block out some specific time, about 30 minutes or so, in order to gather your materials and make sure that you have written out lesson plans so that when situations like this do come up, you can feel totally prepared and less stressed. So I'm going to be sharing some tips for how you can create these one-day lesson plans on your own. Now, if you need something to kind of help guide you a little bit, I'm going to be sharing a resource that I have created. It is available within my resource store. If you are a part of the Bridging Literacy community, this is absolutely free for you. So you can head over to your resource section and download this resource today. For everyone else, it is going to be available in my TPT and also my store. I'm going to leave those links down in the description box. And if you are somebody who is interested in the community, I encourage you to go and join the waiting list so that you can get this resource for absolutely free once we open up doors to our community. So these 6 tips are going to be perfect for ensuring that you are engaging your students, reviewing, keeping that rigorous teaching going, and it's also going to ensure that you don't have a ton of things that you have to grade and look through for when you come back after being sick. So let's jump right on into the very first tip. Tip number 1 is going to make sure that you have a book for instruction. Now, this is a great opportunity to pull in some of those texts that are not typical texts that you would read with your class. I don't care what anyone says, 6th graders love silly books too, and these picture books are fantastic choices. For me, I ended up going with the Couch Potato book. It's one that my younger son absolutely loves. I've read it with my 5th and my 6th grade class, and they both love it as well. It's a story about a little couch potato who realizes that maybe sitting in front of the couch and just doing everything on TVs and playing games is not the end-all be-all. So he goes through a beautiful transformation, and it's a great opportunity to have great discussions with your class. So go through your library, determine what are some books that maybe you've always wanted to do some form of a lesson with, but it's never really fit into the curriculum that you were teaching. These are great opportunities to do some of those life lessons that so many kids need to have. And technology is one of those big life lessons that we have to talk about. So once you have a book selected and you know that this is kind of the text that you want to revolve your entire instruction around for the day, then I want you to determine some ways in order to make this a little bit more interactive. It can be hard for a sub to just come right on in and just read a book to your class and ensuring that they're asking the right questions, that they're keeping kids engaged, because some kids will start to drift off and behaviors will start to come up. So in order to do this, I like to use a little strategy that I got from the book, Disrupting Thinking. It's a fantastic text. If you have not read it already, I definitely encourage you to put this onto your summer read list. But there is a strategy that's called BHH. It stands for Book, Head, and Heart. And it's a great, very simple, interactive activity that will get kids thinking about the text as you are reading the entire book. So the way that this works is I have kind of created these little cards here. So you have a book, the head, and then the heart. And you're going to notice that on each one, they have sentence stems. And so for this one, it says, book, I think the book is about, the narrator of the book is, the author wants me to know. And it just kind of gives some kids some ideas of what they can use with this popsicle stick. The heart is, I feel because, I learned blank because, and then head is, I noticed, I was surprised by. Something that stood out to me was, I was confused when I found blank interesting. And all of these prompts came directly from that text. And so it's a great little resource to be able to use with kids. And so I just laminated mine. I put them onto little popsicle sticks, and each kid would receive one set. So they're going to get all 3 of these cards. And so as you read, you would encourage kids to hold these up as they're kind of thinking about the book. Now, the way that this is kind of written out and the way that I've done this in the past is that I would model for the first like 2 to 4 pages. I would read the first 2 pages, I would stop, I would hold one of these up, and I would show them kind of my thinking. After that, then I would encourage students to go ahead and start holding up their own popsicle sticks. And as they did that, I would pick maybe about 2 to 3 kids to be able to share after every 2 pages. So basically, before I kind of flip to the next page, I would allow kids and choose kids to expand on their thinking and share a little bit about what's kind of going on in their head, or heart. So these are very simple ways to make it interactive, and it's a great way for a sub to ensure that behaviors are staying exactly where they need to be and that students are focused and engaged with the lesson. Tip number 3 is going to be to build in a reading skill that is going to be a review and is also very engaging. And the way that I like to do this is after reading the book, I like to engage students in just a conversation, something very simple, very quick. So one of the things with the book Couch Potato is the fact that you're talking about theme. This is a great lesson to be learned from this text. And so that's a conversation that you're going to open up as soon as you're done reading. So you would have a little conversation about what do you think the theme of this text is going to be? Students will then share, well, if I'm going to have them talking and thinking about theme, a really simple reading activity for them to do is going to be to work with partners. And so this is a very simple resource. You don't necessarily have to have everything cut in advance. It's very easy for a sub to have something printed out, have the cards printed out, and then also allow kids to be able to cut out their own cards so that they can do their partner sorts. But again, it gets kids moving, it gets them engaging, having a discussion, and it doesn't need to be something really, really long. So this activity is meant to take no more than 5 minutes max. So here's the example that I have for the couch potato. And so what the students are going to do, if we're talking about theme, I want them to think about the change that occurred within the character. So we have the beginning and then we have the end. And then each of the cards has something specific about what kind of that represented that character at the beginning and what was at the end. So here are some really quick examples. Never leaves the comfort of the couch. That's definitely going to be something that the potato has at the end. Hangs out with friends outside and goes swimming. That's going to be something the character does at the end. So what's nice is I also have like this resource where I give them the sub the answer key. And I encourage the sub to be able to go around and basically say, like, do you have this correct? And I would say, you know what, there are some things wrong in the very beginning of your mat. I would go through and look to decide which ones are not supposed to be there. If you automatically tell them, hey, this card is not wrong, what are they going to do? They're going to pull it and they're going to place it on the other side. And there's no real learning that's happening there. But if the sub goes around and says, you know what, there's something wrong on this side, you might want to double check it. You're engaging kids to have a conversation with one another and decide on which one it is and where it and why it needs to go on the other side. So it prompts a little bit more discussion than you just telling them, hey, this one is wrong, and then they'll just make that move. So build in some form of a reading skill. This was a very simple reading skill. Notice that this was not a worksheet. This was not something that the kids were having to fill in and write out. I didn't really want that. I wanted them to have conversations and discussions. And this is a very, very simple way for a substitute to be able to implement it into the classroom and not have to worry. And it gets kids excited and engaged, and it keeps them really interested in the lesson overall. Tip number 4 is going to be to tie it to writing. So you have a book, you make it interactive. Now you've done your reading skill. Now you want to tie something in to writing. Now I really love this one and I'm super proud of myself because for this one, I had them create a potato. But because we're talking about character and how the character went from one version to the other version, this is a great way for them to be thinking about theme. Now, this isn't writing as in they're writing a story, but it's still writing in the sense that they have to create sentences, they have to have a justification. So you can really tailor it to the need of your class and you can base it off of the needs of those students. So here it says, don't be a couch potato. The theme of the book is. And so students will kind of explain the theme of the book and why they think it's that way. You can have them create one reason to support or 2 or 3. It's up to you and it's up to the students depending on how much they're able to really write. Now notice the versions that I've showed you so far are going to be like a 3rd, 4th grade version. Now, I also have like a 5th and 6th grade version because again, I teach multi-age. So I have lots of different learners. And so in the resource that I have, I also made sure to have something for 5th and 6th. So this would be an example of the reading skill, and this is looking at strong versus weak evidence, but it still ties to theme. So after having that discussion of the lesson learned, students have to sort through the evidence and depending on which one is strong, which one is weak. And it's the same process as before. It comes with an answer key so that the substitute can really help to encourage where it needs to go. These are all skills that are constantly being discussed within class because these are going to be the things that we are always asking of students, especially when it comes to that evidence in 5th and 6th grade. Now, for the writing piece, 5th and 6th grade looks a little bit different. So you have a 3rd and 4th grade version, which you saw there. 5th and 6th grade, you want it to be a little bit more in depth. So for 5th and 6th grade, I decided that I wanted to tie it into kind of an argumentative writing and them creating their own opinion of what they believe. So I found an impact of technology on kids article. I kind of did my own research there and I wrote out my own version of the article. It's a 2-page article. And so students would then read the informational article on the impact on kids. And then once they were done, they would create their arguments. So they would have a claim, a counterclaim. They would give 3 pieces of evidence and justify that evidence and then follow it with a conclusion sentence. So this is kind of what it would look like at the very end of it. Again, I give an answer key so that teachers know exactly what to expect of it. But notice how it's a little bit different from 3rd, 4th to 5th and 6th grade. And you really do want to tailor it to the need of your class, but that's just another idea of something that you could do. And I love being able to take a literature text and tie it to an informational piece so that students can start to see kind of the relationship between the two and how they can further their learning with that. Tip number 5 is going to be to create an extension activity. There is no worse feeling than having not enough for your class period. And sometimes your kids might zoom through specific lessons. So you always want to have some form of an extension activity. So for 3rd and 4th grade, I ended up doing this fun little activity where they have an iPad and it's what would you do to put down technology. So again, we're going back to this idea of if I want my kids to be able to have the theme. We've kind of talked about the character change there. We've talked about the theme of the text, why they're learning this lesson. Well, let's find some solutions for ways that we can help remedy this. So for this one, they created 3 different app. They're not real apps, but 3 different things that they could do instead of technology. And so using the other page here, they would basically just write out what they think that they could do. Like here are some different options for what you could do instead of doing anything with technology. So it kind of gives kids a different way of kind of saying, oh, well, here are some things that I like to do instead of playing on my iPad or watching on TV. And it's a great, just simple extension activity that's also like a writing format. But the kids really enjoy sharing something like this, and it would make a really cute bulletin board display. For 5th and 6th grade, it's very, very similar. So instead of doing the iPad version, they just have kind of this simple version that they can attach to, some construction paper to make it pop a little bit more, but they would create 4 different solutions to the problem. So they've identified the problem looking through the informational article for the impact of technology on kids. Now they're going to come up with some of those solutions for here. So again, notice how I've taken this text, I've made it interactive, which the interactive piece can happen for any book. And then I thought of a really good reading skill that is a good review for my students, tied that maybe to some informational text for 5th and 6th grade, and then also tied it into writing. When you have all of these elements, you've created a really well-rounded lesson that kind of allows students to see the connections between all of the different moving parts that you've done during that day. But again, you don't have to have this as something where you're extending it and you're continuing it and it's going to take 2 or 3 days for you to finish. This can be something that is just one day, quick lesson review, and then you're going to move back on, jumping back into the curriculum the very next day. My very last tip for you, tip number 6, is going to be to have a tight lesson plan written out. I know that this is probably going to be the one that you're like, oh, but I don't want to sit down and type it all out. I promise you, during those days when you are not feeling good and you really don't want to have to think about what you need your students to do on a day, this is going to save you, because in your lesson plans, you would say, see detailed lesson, and that's all you have to write, which is very, very nice. So in the resource that I have created, just like as a version for my own class, I have 2 different lesson plan formats. I have the 3rd and 4th grade version, which is this one, and then I have a 5th and 6th grade version. So notice I have times, I have the lesson objective, but I also have a written lesson plan format. It goes into detail and explains it step by step what the sub needs to be doing and what they need to have. So it gives them each of the different lessons. You have the extension, but you also have the assessment to be able to say, like, this day wasn't totally a complete waste because we were able to review skills and I was able to assess whether students had made any progress on this skill at all. So having that detailed lesson plan is just going to be the icing on the cake. It is the most important part because it's the piece that then you don't need to worry about anything at all. So that is it. Those are going to be the 6 tips to really help you create a one-day lesson for those days that you're feeling a little under the weather and you want to take a day off and just kind of spend it for yourself, or for those days where you feel totally unprepared and you need to have something right then and there, but you want to make it engaging and meaningful. This is really going to save you. Again, I'm going to leave those links down in the description box. So if you do want to check out this resource, you can, but hopefully these tips have really allowed you to be able to make this your own. Go out, find a book that you've been wanting to read with your students and take these tips and put them into practice so that then you can have all of this ready to go. I do encourage you to put this into like an envelope, have it stored somewhere where a partner teacher or somebody knows exactly where it is going to be. If you have a sub binder, even better, place it in your sub binder so that way everything is where it needs to be and you don't have to worry about anything at all. Like I mentioned before, make sure you're blocking out that specific time, about 30 minutes or so, print things out, have everything ready to go, and then you can just rest and relax when you need it the most. So I hope these tips have really helped you become a little bit more proactive in creating this one-day lesson so that you can feel less stressed about the day. And if you are looking for more resources like this, or you want to hear a little bit more about the Bridging Literacy community, be sure to follow the link down in the description box. The community is closed right now, but you can join the waiting list and you will be the first person to be notified once the community doors have been opened. This resource, along with Anchor standards and Anchor resources, are all available within the community. And not to mention, you just get to hang out with some amazing teachers within our Facebook group too. So be sure to follow that link and check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and I will catch you all next week. Bye.